Hello guys, welcome to Online Web Tutor presented by Profotech Solutions team. I am Sanjay. We are learning Laravel Admin Panel Development Beginners tutorial and this is our part number 36. Inside this video session guys, we will learn about how can we set our guard and also we will use about the authenticate users. And also guys, if you are a beginner to this channel, please don't forget to subscribe and keep watching our previous video sessions to get the clear concept about Laravel Admin Panel Development tutorial. So in our previous video session guys, we had done our entry inside our table called TBL admins, and this was the table. Inside this table we have a row and something which contains the data actually we have seeded from our file. This is as online web tutor as the name, this is our email, and this is our password. Now we are going to make a guard which basically protects or authenticate the admin before login via this form. So how can we authenticate user and also how can we develop a guard, we will learn from this chapter. Back to editor. Now here we have opened some file and this is our admin controller where actually we are redirecting a login form, and also in our last video session this is a statement that we have done a print r. So if I go inside our config folder, and this is our config folder inside our project setup. So if I open this file contains a file something called auth.php. So just open up this file. If I scroll down, as we can see that here we have a guards array. This is default provided by Laravel. Either we can use, this is the provided by Laravel, so either we can use this or we can just make a custom guard. So we are going to make a custom guard. So if I copy this guard, I'm going to paste it in here, and let's say that this guard should be admin and this should be driver, it should be session. And if I scroll down, and let's say that instead of this, if I say, let's say school admin, this is our provider name. Again, if I copy this provider name, back here inside this providers array we have to define this provider what we have written here. So if I scroll here, again if I copy this users, pasting it here, go up, copy this school admin, and scroll down, and I'm going to pasting it here. Driver should be eloquent, and this time we are not going to use our users model. This time we are going to use our model what we have written inside this admin.php. This is the model, or this is the file that we have developed in our previous video session. So we are going to use this file. So here let's say that app, and we have a file called admin. So basically all we have done about setting our custom guard inside auth.php. The two simple steps that we have to follow, that we have to define our guard inside this guards array, and finally we have to define this providers right here what we have inside this providers array. Now back to file called admin.php. Inside this file I'm going to add another key and something called protected, and this should be something guard. Here we have the guard that we have defined for this file, something called school admin. So if I copy that and I'm going to pasting it here. So finally we have defined two parameters inside this admin, something called table in the last video session, and in the current video we have a guard. So now we're using by school admin, we are going to authenticate our user inside this controller by getting our email address and the password. So at the first step, before authenticating our admin, we have to validate our that this field is required. So we are going to use our library, something called use validator. So back to our check login method, and let's say that validator equal to, let's say validate. It has a static method called make. Inside this make method we are going to pass some of the parameters. The first array some contains about the values. So let's say that email, and the email is coming basically inside this request object, and email as a parameter. Next we have the parameter something called password, and this is also coming inside this request object, and the key something we have something called password. Now inside next array we are going to pass our validation rules, and here we have an error, and error is something called this is about. Okay, now inside this second array we are going to pass a validation rule. So copy email, and let's say that email, this should be required, and also if I talking about the password, then this password also should be required. So this was the validation rules. Now if I copy this validator object, and let's say that if validator fails, I think that this was the actually basic steps that we have done several times while creating our class section, class, faculty and students. Now if suppose we have some errors or else we have no errors, so after getting errors we are going to return. So let's return redirect, and here let's say with errors, and also let's say that with input. Now inside with errors I'm going to pass something called validator, and inside this redirect we have to pass the URL. Actually by getting the errors we are going to redirect over that. So basically we are going to redirect over this login. So copy this route and pasting it here. All we have done now. Now inside this else block, now we have to authenticate our user. So let's say that this is our user info, and user info basically contains an array, and inside this array simply we are going to store our email and the name parameter. So email and the password. So I'm going to pasting it here. Now here comes the concept about the guard. So we are going to use or implement our guard inside this application. So we are going to use auth, scroll down, and let's say that if, and this will provide auth method. Inside this auth we have a method something called guard. So let's say guard. Inside this guard, what we have done inside this auth.php and the guard that we have developed, if you go up, this was the guard. So copy this admin, back to controller, and let's say guard. This guard should attempt a login, and let's attempt. Inside this attempt function we have to pass this user info, which basically contains the email and the password. What basically this block will do, after passing this email address and password, the guard admin should go on the providers list, and this admin guard has a provider something called school admin, and by going through this school admin it has a model associated something called app admin, and this is the class file. So after getting email address and password, it will compare the values inside this table something called tbl admins. So if record exists, it returns all the user information, else it returns the error messages. So let's say that print r, and let's say that log user details, and this should be small d, and here let's auth, and we have something called guard, and guard we have something called we have .admin, and this will return all the user information after successfully logged in, and we are going to print r. And finally, if suppose we have no user associated with that details, so we have to show some error message. So let's error message, and we have the message called, let's say that invalid credentials, and finally we have to let's return. It should be redirect and back from this post method and with errors. So let's say with errors, and the error messages that we have something error message, so I'm going to copy and paste inside this method. So finally all we have done now, if you go to login form.plate.php, inside this login form also we have to implement about the concept of printing error messages. So basically to print our error messages, if I open any of the view files so far we have developed, and something called add class.blade.php, so inside this file we have implemented about the concept of these things. So copy all these things, go to our login form, and I'm going to pasting it here. So if I save this file, go here, reload this page, and let's say that we have something abc@gmail.com. This is the dummy email and dummy password. If I press sign in button, okay, we have some error, something called app http controllers validate not found. So back to editor, go to controller, and if I go up, this should be something validator, so it should be okay. And if I scroll down, here is we have called validate. So instead of validate we have to use called validator. So if I save this file, back again, reload this page, and let's say that abc@gmail.com. We have some dummy password, sign in button, and this is invalid credentials. It means that the recorder does not exist with those details. So what will happen if we pass about the correct details, and the correct details, as we have remembered that we have written inside a file, and the files is something called admin table seeder.php, and this was the detail. So if I copy this email address back here, pass inside this, and let's say that the password something we have called online123. If I press sign button, and we have successfully logged in by using our custom guard. This actually data represents that we have successfully printed our data inside this by using this print r statement. Print r statements, it means that successfully we have collected all the data by using our guard with the logged in current user. Again, back to browser. Let me search about the username something online web tutor, and as we can see that this is the name, this is the email, and all the things associated with that user. Back to editor. Now next step, we are going to integrate about the use of session. So let's say use session. After putting it here, after importing this library, back here, instead of this print r, let's say that session. And inside this session method, I'm going to pass, let's say, is active. It means that successfully user has logged in and it has a status of active 1. In the next step, I'm going to store all the informations of user. So let's say that session user details, and inside this user details key, I'm going to store all the values inside this logged in user details. So basically guys, these are the few simple steps. By using this concept, actually we can implement our custom guard authentication inside this Laravel admin panel. In the next video, we will see that how can we use this custom guard by using our middleware concept so that we can protect our routes. If we go inside web.php, then as we can see that these all routes, as we can see, all the routes should be opened when the user is currently logged in. Either we have only two routes, something called login and check login. So how can we further categorize about these routes, about login and logout? We will see in our next video session when we implement our middleware concept by using our custom guard that we have developed so far. So inside this video session guys, if you have any doubt, then please drop your comment. I will give my reply as soon as possible. So for this video session guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day.